again, if there's anybody left. Okay, so when we went into confidential, Councillor Devine, we were dealing with the proposal that you had. There was no seconder for it. And I'm going to open that back out to you again if you've had a chance, or I'll throw it over to the city solicitor first. You want to do that, Philip? Yeah, go ahead.
I just checked that Lee Kennedy's back in from the lobby.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Lee back.
Yeah, members. So during the a period that we're in confidential business, legal advice was provided in relation to the application of the new LDP. But members, before then we go forward with further consideration of this application, as members are aware, some late information was received in relation to personal circumstances. It would be appropriate that officers have the opportunity to consider the issue of personal circumstances before determining this application further today. And consequently, members, the suggestion would be that we adjourn this for, for a date to be fixed, but for at least until the next planning committee meeting. And then we consider it again at that stage.
Go ahead, Councillor Devine, you happy?
Content with that to propose that we defer it for now.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Leonard. Thank you. Okay, members, so the proposal is that we do defer to seek that further information and give officers another further opportunity to explore the situation. So proposed by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Leonard. I don't hear any dissension in relation to that proposal, members. So we will work on the basis that that is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Now, members, I'm proposing we take a 10-minute break at this point, and we'll all come back here at roughly 25 to 5. Thank you. Okay, members, thank you. And I'm sure we all needed that wee brief respite. So, we're now going to move to appendix 2, which is LA 11 2023 /2189 F. And that is at 34 Clarendon Street. And again, recommendation to refuse. Presenting officer is Malachy.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2, LA 11 2023 /2189 is a full application for the proposed change of use from offices to HMO with 11 number rooms and associated site works at 34 Clarendon Street, and the recommendation is to refuse. The application site is located within the development limits of the city. It's within the central area as defined in the Derry Area Plan. It's also within the Clarendon Street Conservation Area. The application site is a three-storey B1 listed building. It's a mid-terrace property located within the main thoroughfare going to our city centre at Clarendon Street. Just a photograph to give you an idea of the current property. And again, there's a view from the rear, Muse Lane. The existing and proposed elevations are contained within your pack. Again, the existing and proposed floor plans are also contained within your pack, and we'll show you the main alterations to the property in terms of the HMO. So in terms of the policy context, as touched upon in previous reports, we're within an interim period where both the retained policies, including the SPPS and the Derry Area Plan, and the new draft plan strategy or material considerations in determining planning applications. The policy context is set out within your within the case officer report. And again, it will include some of the new policies within the plan, including GDPOL 1, GDPOL 2, and of particular relevance to this application, HOW 13 and 14, which are policies related to HMO applications. And it will also cover the historic buildings element of the application. So this just to give an idea of the retained policies which are still considered within the planning application pack. So we've consulted a number of bodies in relation to the application, including DFA Roads, Environmental Health, Historic Environment Division, Shared Environmental Services, and Water Management Unit. Road Service have observed that there's on-street parking is limited in this location, but also acknowledge that the site is located within Zone A, as stipulated in the Derry Area Plan, where car parking is not normally a requirement other than for servicing. Environmental Health have no objections and have advised on standard and formulas which relate to the licensing requirements for HMOs. Historic Environment Division have advised in respect of the impact of the listed building, in respect of this full application, and also in the associated application, the listed building consent. They've given their views in relation to the impact of the host listed building. They've recommended approval on the associated LBC subject to conditions, and they have no issues in respect of the setting of other listed buildings within Clarendon Street, which there are quite a few. Shared Environmental Service have no objection subject to standard conditions, and Water Management have no objection subject to standard conditions relating to the method of sewage disposal. Again, there's no representations either in support or objecting to the proposal. There's the planning history again set out in the pack. There's an associated application for a proposed gas boiler positioned in the rear store within the same property. So the policy consideration and the draft plan strategy. Prior to the introduction of the draft plan strategy, it's acknowledged that the Derry Area Plan had no local policy in relation to HMOs, and furthermore, there was no regional policy contained within the SPPS, nor was there a subject plan developed at any stage related to HMO development for Derry City or any other settlements within the Derry City Strabane District Council area. In consideration of this application, the draft plan strategy policy on HMOs has been considered and afforded determinant width in terms of the officer's recommendations. And together with the other relevant retained policies, it will remain a material consideration until such times as the draft plan strategy is fully adopted. So in terms of the two main policies, there's HOU 13 is the houses and multiple occupation management areas. That sets out the position in relation to how HMOs will be managed in terms of land use as we go forward in the LDP. The draft plan strategy states in the transition period until the local policies plan is adopted, the council will not permit more than 30% of the houses in any street to be granted for further HMO development. In terms of this proposal in relation to this street, officers have assessed that there are 20 dwelling units within Clarendon Street, of which 4 are HMO properties. So therefore, this equates to 20% of the residential properties on Clarendon Street operating as HMOs. The introduction of a further HMO at this location would bring the number to 5, therefore equating to 25% for Clarendon Street. Therefore, an assessment of HOU 13, officers are of the view that the application does not exceed the 30% threshold that's stated for the interim period in HOU 13, and therefore HOU 13 has been complied with in officer's opinion. In relation to HOU 14, this policy sets out a number of criteria that must be assessed by officers and decision makers in relation to HMO properties above and beyond the HOU 13. So it states that there's a number of issues that have to be considered, including that any proposed HMO unit does not exceed 4 bedrooms, that the original property is greater than 150 square metres, and in cases where they're changing from a flat to HMO, the HMO units are self-contained, i.e. that they have their own bathroom, separate bathroom, WC and kitchen available for use only by HMO unit occupiers, and that any HMO unit wholly in the rear of the property and without access to the public street would not be acceptable, and that the proposal does not detract from the established residential character of an area. It does state that there are applications that do not meet all of these criteria will normally be refused. And it does say that in the exceptional circumstances, it may be demonstrated that there is an exceptional local need to justify lowering some of the criteria requirements. In relation to this proposal, the proposal sets out an ambition to have 11 bedrooms. Therefore, officers are of the view that this is contrary to the first policy criterion of HOU 14, as the proposed HMO unit exceeds the 4-bedroom limit as set out in HOU 14. As explained in paragraph 16109 of the JNA, Justification Amplification, HMOs have potential to affect residential amenity. The policy places a maximum capacity on bedrooms in order to minimise the potential for any amenity impacts arising from HMO development. Therefore, in this instance, it is considered that due to the number of bedrooms proposed, the proposal will have a significantly detrimental impact on the residential amenity of the area. It's accepted that the gross internal floor space exceeds 150 square metres. It's accepted that the property is self-contained for use only for future occupants. It's accepted the units located at the rear all have access to the public street. And it's considered that the proposal does not detract from the residential character of the area. Furthermore, officers consider there's been no exceptional local need has been demonstrated to justify permitting 11-bedroom HMO at this location. Therefore, taking into account all the factors within HOU 14, officers are of the view that it's contrary to this policy. Officers also have set out their views and recommendations in relation to other emerging policies within the local development plan, including GDPOL 1 and GDPOL 2. And it's considered the proposal complies with the requirements set out in those, and these are detailed in the case officer report. In terms of parking provision, it's acknowledged that the proposals within Zone A, the commercial core, in which only operational car parking, for example, servicing and other essential operations is a requirement. Therefore, in such instances, officers do not believe that there is a policy basis for asking for additional parking. The site is currently located and is within walking distance of the bus station, main shopping areas, and is within the city centre. Furthermore, during off-peak hours for city centre parking, there will be adequate provision for parking in nearby streets to accommodate the proposal. It's also considered the proposal complies with the policies contained within TAM 9, which deals with car parking and servicing, and TR 7 of PPS 3. Officers are satisfied in relation to sewage and environmental impact that provided that a pre-commencement negative condition is attached to any plan permission, that there be no impacts from sewage disposal. Given that this condition will mean that an agreement will have to be in place with NI Water before they can operate. In terms of built heritage and conservation area, HED will comment separately on the LBC application. And in terms of the proposal in relation to the conservation area, there's no material changes proposed to the exterior bar the replacement of a basement window on the principal elevation, which is proposed to be slim framed, slim profile, double glazed timber window, and in character with the conservation area and in compliance with the policy and the conservation area guide. So officers are content that the proposal meets the relevant heritage policies within the retained policies in the local development plan. We've also considered the impact on the setting of listed buildings, and given that there's minimal changes to the proposed physical changes to the proposed development, there's no concern that this proposal will affect the setting of any nearby listed buildings. You'll note in your we've received a number of lit items. The agent acting on behalf of the applicant has emailed correspondence from Ulster University and also from a local estate agent, letting agent. Although the email describes the correspondence from Ulster University as a letter of support, it has not been logged as a letter of support, and we have confirmed that by contacting Ulster University. However, it is a material consideration on the basis that it demonstrates that Ulster University are actively engaging with landlords in order to meet their head lease scheme. It also confirms that the university only enter into such agreements where all relevant permissions for HMO are in place. So what we mean there is that when planning permissions and licenses are in place. So in relation to the other correspondence from the letting agent, this demonstrates that there's some evidence of a broader issue of a lack of available rental properties for private occupation in the city, and it sets out the role the HMOs can play in addressing housing shortages in the city. House 14 does give some discretion to decision makers that in exceptional circumstances where it can be demonstrated that there is exceptional local need to justify lowering some of the criteria requirements, that the decision makers may do that in relation to House 14. It's not considered that sufficient evidence has been submitted in this case to demonstrate that there is exceptional need in this part of the city over and above elsewhere, and given that the proposal is more than doubling the amount of rooms, it is not considered that this policy can be relaxed. So overall, and having considered all material considerations, including the development plan, the relevant planning policies, both retained and the new local development plan, considering planning history, consultation responses, lit items, etc., refusal is recommended for the following reasons as set out in the case officer report. The proposal is contrary to Derry City and Strabane District Council's draft plan strategy policy House 14, houses of multiple occupation, HMO, and that the proposed development, if permitted, would exceed 4 bedrooms and would detract from the established residential character of the area. And just some clarification in relation to the wording of that particular refusal reason in relation to House 14. When we mention there impacting residential character of the area, we're talking about amenity in terms of effect of the number of bedrooms. And the second refusal is the proposal is contrary to strategic plan policy statement and policy BH7 and policy BH11 of PPS 6 and Derry City Strabane plan policy strategy HE listed buildings and their settings that the proposed changes will detrimental impact on the character and setting of this listed building. and the officer's recommendation is to refuse.
Thank you, Malachy. Okay, members. Couple of speakers on this one as well. Can I invite Councillor Neelis back up, who's requested speaking rights? So again, Grace, very welcome. Whenever you're ready.
John, and Jess, thanks for the opportunity. So I'm here today to ask you to give considerable weight to the officer's recommendation to refuse this application. As a councillor for Foyleside, I'm contacted weekly, sometimes daily, by concerned residents whose communities have been impacted by the saturation of HMOs. The impact of this uncontrolled development has resonated with us, and so throughout the development of the LDP, we've been very mindful of the need for the introduction of a HMO policy which will protect the residential areas. With a proposal at Planning Committee at the start of June to adopt the LDP, the HMO policy has now been given considerable weight, and Sinn Féin welcomes this as a result of many years of work and a major step towards the protection of residents. The draft plan strategy was published over 5 years ago now, so although this application was submitted in 2023, the intentions of our council have been clear for a number of years before this. The HMO policy, namely in this case HOU 14, is reflected in the officer's recommendation for refusal today, and I would ask you to uphold these.
Thank you, Grace. Again, members, there's no opening for questions to Councillor Neelis, but again, thanks for your contribution. The next speaker that we have is the agent on behalf of the applicant, and that's Alan Boyle, no relation. Alan, I believe you're online, so whenever you're ready to go, Alan, we'll hear from you, okay?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the consideration earlier, because I had a double booking today. This application is in the central core. It's in the flat zone. It's a large vacant Georgian building. Its last use was an office, so that changes us from the previous case that the committee's heard today, which was a change of use from a house to a HMO. This has been an office for at least 30 years or more. And when we look at Clarendon Street, we are less than the 25% or 30% HMOs on the street, but that's only when you take on the residential properties. When we take on all the other mixed uses on Clarendon Streets, which has surgeries, offices, there's a lot of mixed use buildings there. We would be probably closer to 10%, though I'd have to sit down and work that out. This application was submitted in November 23. It was brought before council, as Malachy has said, in November 24. The only issue at that time was the HED. Now, we could have asked for it to be determined at that stage and could have brought it in front of the committee and could have made our arguments at that stage, but we chose, rather than waste committee's time at that time, to resolve the HED problems, which we now have done so. And we had a frustrating time with HED because it kept changing. To give a wee bit of backdrop onto this application is very similar to a previous application we got approved in 2022, and we knew everything that HED would look for because we met them on site, walked the building, and agreed what they wanted in the other building. So we applied the same approach in this one. So we were doing our best to work with HED. So the university has contacted our client to request, come to an agreement for taking the building for occupation. They've met on site. I was with them when they met on site. They've expressed taking on it a 3-year term at least. The letting agent has a letter of support stressing the housing stress in the city. And we've reduced the scheme back in July 24. We originally had in for 13. When asked, we could have rolled the dice on 13 back in November, but we chose to reduce. We were on the understanding if we reduced to 11 that it would be palatable to council at that time, or to the planning department. The design is almost identical to a similar scheme completed in 21-22. When we lodged the application, we submitted a separate application for a gas installation. We withdrew that application because that was complicating the whole issue for the planning office. And what happened then for us with HED was HED were raising some issues. We believe they were in connection to the withdrawn gas application. We highlighted this, but and we asked for meetings between the planners and HED in attendance. There was some reluctance to give us this meeting, but we persevered and finally got sitting down with Dermot Madden from HED on our own, only for what we thought we had agreed to be changed. The drawings were as I would have thought approvable back in June last year, but we then got clearance from HED in December last year, January this year. The planners have advised that the refusal reason that we were brought to committee in November has been addressed, and we thought we were being brought back in January for an approval. Now, we understand that the committee asked for all HMOs to be held in abeyance until the LDP was looked at a bit further. We feel slightly, well, not slightly, we feel very aggrieved at this because we had worked tirelessly to give HED and the planners everything they wanted. We have some of their proposals on the street. We understand that one of the big issues, or the only issue against us now, is we have an 11-bedroom unit here. Our client is prepared to reduce this and mitigate it up or down if it helped make it more palatable to the committee. But across the road, there is an 8-bedroom flat unit, and the total number of beds, and that's 21. The first revision we made was back in March 24. We then reduced to 11 beds in July 24. We changed planning officers maybe 2 or 3 times. We're well less than the 30% for HOU 13. The only issue is the four beds, but we believe we're an exception to this. The draft plan statement was on the 17th of December 24, and the transitional period will now operate. We were approvable at that time. We're not really seeing the transitional period operating. Now, we're old enough to have actually worked through the DNAP plan of 2016 in Limavady, where Council 2 applied too much weight too early to the draft plan, which led to very costly and time-consuming appeals and judicial reviews.
Excuse me, Alan, that's your 5 minutes is up there now.
Are you sure that's 5 minutes?
I'll let you wrap it up, but if you
Sorry.
do so quickly, please.
Right. The one point I think, the fundamental point is the regional development strategy for Northern Ireland 2025 said it is appropriate to give greater weight to the existing area plan. And the other thing is that the committee can decide on this application based on the deferred November 24 reason. That was a HCD. We have been to the committee. The only refusal reason was HCD. We have now sorted that. You can make your decision based on that as the weight without prejudice to the LDP. All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, if you just want to sit tight there, I'm going to open it up to the floor here to see if anybody has any questions for Mr. Boyle or anybody online for that matter. Councillor Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, and apologies if this has already been answered, but the acoustics are terrible in the chamber, so I didn't quite catch everything the agent said, but I know that there was and there was reference to the length of time and the challenges that the applicant had getting HED agreement, but the fundamental issue in relation to this is our new draft plan strategy that was endorsed by this committee only a few weeks ago. And I know, I think I heard the agent reference the fact that it wasn't in place when whenever the HED issues were arisen in November 24. But the draft plan strategy was out for consultation numerous times. This policy had been out for consultation numerous times. As an agent, I would trust that the agent was aware that this policy was on, where we were on track of bringing in a policy to manage HMOs. So it shouldn't have came as a surprise when it was endorsed by this committee at the planning committee earlier this month. So I just wanted to ask the agent, had he been aware of an emerging HMO policy? And if so, was he advising the applicant of the risk associated with proceeding with the application? Thanks, Chair.
Well,
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Alan, I'm assuming you heard all that, so
Uh,
I'll give you the opportunity to respond to that.
thanks, Councillor Jackson. We were aware, and we've been aware for some time of the draft area plan coming out. But we're a local office, Councillor Jackson, and we've worked at great lengths with committee and with the planning department. We think we're actually a very obliging office in terms of, you know, withdrawing applications and trying to simplify things. We were aware of the HMO policy, but we were of the understanding that it was more directed away from the flat zone and into places like Rosemount Avenue and, you know, places off Northland Terrace, where there was a proliferation of and a loss of family of HMOs and a loss of family homes and a proliferation of HMOs. Well, Clarendon Street we always viewed as being the flat zone, and I know a HMO isn't strictly speaking a flat, but our applicant here, while it's a HMO, this isn't your run-of-the-mill HMO. The standard size for a bedroom for a HMO is 6.5 square meters. The smallest bedroom we have here for a single person is 8.2 square meters. We have more living space and kitchen accommodation than is required by the HMO licensing. The largest bedroom we have is, I think, 15 square meters for a single person. And the reason we do that is we work to try and save as much of the historic fabric as we possibly can, you know, and we were caught off with the fact that this came out because I'll be honest, Councillor Jackson, I was a bit miffed with the fact that the case officers brought this to committee in November because we were working to a resolution, and had we had the meeting with a roundtable meeting, which we had asked for from September onwards with planners and HED, we would have had the HED thing sorted. At our individual meeting with HED, the comment was quite throwaway when we pointed out that they were being unreasonable. The comment was, I can ask for the earth, moon and the stars, and it's up to the planning officers to tell me no. When I eventually got a meeting with the planning officers, I recalled this because I told HED I would do. And the planning officer says, yes, we might regulate them. I said, well, we're not going to tell them no. I said, but their response to us is very much, how long is the piece of string? I can ask for everything, but the planners, it's their role to govern me and tell me no if they think I'm wrong. But we were frustrated at being brought to committee in November 24, but we chose not to fight it at committee at 24 because, as I say, I think we're being undone here by our reasonableness trying to, you know, sort this out, you know. So we were shocked when we hit January, and then we were told there's a hold on release of your approval because the committee want to have a look and look at the HCD or the look at the HMO policy that's emerging. And I go back to the fact that Clarendon Street isn't a residential area. You know, it's our office used to be based there from 1993 until 2000. There, unfortunately, there's less offices there now, but it's from I was a child, Clarendon Street was a place for doctors, surgeries was, you know, the use of this building has not been as a family home for a long, long time, and it would not be used as a family home. There's no family home. There's no loss of housing stock here, you know, which I can understand, and I would be totally for the you know, tightening down in residential areas, but Clarendon Street is not that. And then when we add on to
Alan, I don't mean to be rude and cut you short.
Sorry.
I think you've actually answered Councillor Jackson's
Sorry about that.
questions already. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions for Alan? Yeah. Anybody online? Apologies for that, Alan.
No,
but
sorry about that.
we were kind of going around the houses with it, so to
Yeah.
speak. Okay. Thanks, Alan. Thanks for your comments
you.
in relation to this application. I'm now gonna open it up to members if they have any questions for Malachi or any of the officer team in relation to this particular application. So I'll give it a breather for a few seconds to see. And again, no one online with any questions and nobody in the chamber. So members, we do have a recommendation for refusal in your papers in front of you for this application. So again, I'm going to throw it open to the floor and see where it takes us. So again, back to yourselves, please. Mr. Heaney.
Chair, on the basis of the weighting that we are given to our draft LDP and in the interest of consistency, I would be happy to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. So Councillor Heaney is proposing acceptance of the recommendation from the planning team. Obviously, that recommendation is a refusal. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Logue, thank you. I'm actually very familiar myself with the houses in Clarendon Street because I was born and reared there and lived there until about 1985. So I know these particular properties very, very well. And they are very big. They're large houses, no doubt about that. So large, actually, my father ran a business on the ground floor and we lived above it. But anyway, that's just a bit of history. So we have a proposal from Councillor Heaney and seconded by Councillor Logue, and that is to accept the officer recommendation. And that recommendation is to refuse members. So do I need to put it to the vote, or is everyone in agreement with that? And if not, please do indicate otherwise for me now if you can. And no comment online
Chair.
either, members. So I am going
Chair.
to take that. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Jackson.
Chair, just they protect the integrity of the decision taken. I missed literally the first couple of minutes of Malachy's presentation, and I don't want to leave anything open to challenge. So on that basis, I will abstain.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. So we'll mark your vote as an abstention. I don't think I have to abstain because I lived in that street. So I'm in agreement with the rest of the committee if I can consider that a unanimous decision. And I don't see anybody disagreeing with that. So that is that's a decision made, and the application has been refused by this committee unanimously, apart from Councillor Jackson's abstention. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the last appendix, which of course is again related to 34 Clarendon Street, and that's LA 11's number 3, and that's LA 11 2023 2190, and it's an LBC. So again, I'll pass it over to Malachi.
Thank you, Chair. Item 3, LA11 2023 2190. It's a listed building consent application for the proposed change of use from offices to HMO, totaling 11 number rooms and associated site works at 34 Clarendon Street. And the recommendation is to refuse consent. Again, this is the same property. Number 34 is a grade B1 listed building, mid-terrace property within Clarendon Street, which is within the conservation area, and most of the properties within the street are listed. buildings, similar to the property here, 3-story mid-terrace property. Again, from your packs, the changes to the property are set out, mainly in relation to the listed building consent or internal alterations relating to create the number of rooms. There's lowering of ceilings, etc. And there's some changes to one window at basement floor level. In assessment of this application, again, we have the hybrid policy of looking at both the retained policies and the draft plan strategy policies, and the ones that are relevant within those are the SPPS, the HE4 of the draft plan strategy, policies BE1 and BE2 of their area plan, and PPS 6 policies BH8, BH7, and BH11. And as with all the building consent applications, we've consulted the statutory consultee, Historic Environment Division, who have considered the impacts of the proposal, and in terms of the physical alterations, they are content that the final scheme as presented that the changes to the listed building are acceptable in that respect. So again, we've assessed the full application in terms of the draft emerging plan, and have assessed it in terms of policy how 14 that the proposal will be contrary to that. And again, given that this is a listed building and their associated applications, it's material to how we assess the impact of this proposal. So in terms of the actual physical, after many iterations of plans, HED accepted the internal alterations and the alterations to the windows. However, officers are of the view that changing the use of the building would detrimentally impact on the character of the building and the street and the listed building. Consequently, on the basis that the associated policy relating to how we should assess HMOs states that any property for HMO should not exceed 4 bedrooms. And given that this property, this listed building has been altered to accommodate 11 buildings, we believe that this will have a detrimental impact on the listed building. This type of change use, this intensity level of change use will have an adverse impact, and therefore we believe it's contrary to policy HE4 of the development plan, as well as BH7 and criterion C of BH11 and PPS 6. And having considered all the material considerations, including the consultation responses, the local plan and the routine policies, planning history, refusal of listed building consent is recommended as set out in the case officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy. And again, we do have, I think we still have him anyway. He possibly is away. We had Alan Boyle, but I think he may be gone. Alan, are you there? I'm just going to give you a shout out. No. Okay. Right. So members, moving swiftly along then. Has anybody got any questions in relation to that report for Malachy or any of the officer team? Again, recommendation there is for a refusal. Listed buildings are tricky, as we all know. So I'm happy to take any proposals that you might have. Open the floor, please. Councillor Logue.
I'll propose.
Proposed by Councillor Logue, and you're seconding, Alderman Montgomery, yeah? Okay. So again, recommendation there is to refuse. Proposed by Councillor Logue, seconded by Alderman Montgomery. Members, again, I didn't hear any dissenting voices in relation to that proposal, and so I will work on the basis that that's considered unanimous. So again, that application falls and it's now refused by this committee. Members, just before we go, there was a question to the City Solicitor from Alderman McMorris in relation to the timing of the LPP and how that all works, etc. And we did say that we would discuss that in open business. as well. So I'm just going to open the opportunity up for the city solicitor to answer your question, Alderman McMorris. So back yourself, Philip, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, those of you that have been involved in the development of the LDP will be aware that the council is required to publish a timetable for the adoption of the LDP. Current LDP timetable is on the council website. It was last revised in July of 2023, and it anticipated adoption of the LDP plan strategy in January or March 2025. Now we're clearly running a few months behind that schedule at the minute. The current timetable anticipates that the draft LPP would be available in March of 2026. With LPP adoption in Q4 of 2027-2028. Now we will obviously have to update the LDP timetable this summer to reflect the fact that we are running a few months behind schedule, but essentially, members, you're looking at a draft LPP and the timetable being available in about a year, with the LPP adoption envisaged for a year or maybe a little bit more thereafter.
Okay, that answer your question. Okay, so a wee bit away, I think is might be the way we describe it. Can I also just apologise again to members of the public who have joined us in the public gallery? It has been promised to me, believe me, I struggle to hear and hear sometimes as much as anybody else does, that we will soon have a resolution to the sound problems in this in the chamber and in the public gallery. So again, thank you for bearing with us. I'll be chasing that up again very, very soon, believe me, because it's difficult and many members would agree with me too. The sound system in here has been here since 2012. So it's nearly as old as me. Thank you very much. And members, thank you. And that will close the meeting at that. Thank you.